So tell me about your sandwiches. I'm actually really hungry.
Yeah, so we make a bacon, egg, and cheese and a sausage, egg, and cheese. The bacon, egg, and cheese is a Gouda. It's a good black label Hormel bacon that's crispy because we cook it in a Mary Chef, just like you see at all the other coffee shops.
Yeah.
We started that about a year and a half ago. We did a lot of prototypes at home with my family, and then we kind of honed in on what's the best and came up with this method. And it's homemade bread that I make every week. We make, 700 buns. We sell them on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to the public. And then those that don't sell, we freeze and repurpose into this breakfast sandwich.
Very cool. Wheat's on your farm then?
Yeah, yep. We grind wheat, and that's really just it's not the entire amount. That's because there's white flour. There's also whole wheat, but yeah, it just kind of touches that blessing on a breakfast sandwich, or maybe if you have it, buy it for your burgers at home.
Welcome to Spotlight Sioux Falls, where culture meets commerce and the people behind our favorite places get the mic.
We're your hosts, Melissa Goodwin and Steve Schmidt, and we're sitting down with the makers, doers, and dreamers shaping the soul of our city.
From storefronts to side hustles, tattoos to tech startups, we are telling the stories that make Sioux Falls shine.
Because behind every business is a human story, and those stories, they're what make our community feel like home. This is Spotlight Sioux Falls.
Welcome to my favorite edition so far of Spotlight Sioux Falls, and there's one reason. Ben Duenwald is my new hero. He's a man who thinks about calculus and makes donuts with map formulas. And he's kind of a genius. He comes from a family with 7 other brothers and sisters who are a lot like him. But the thing that's special about Ben is he's sitting with Spotlight today, and we need to talk about Flyboy Donuts. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We want to talk about, Ben has so much going on in the business. I'm going to tell you what we learned today. When we walked into our SDSU ice cream.
Correct.
Straight ahead and flight simulator. You have a racing simulator.
Right.
You have all this experiential fun stuff. Like when I come in here, I'm going to do so many things before I grab a donut. I kind of forget that's why I came here. Is that my point?
A little bit. Everybody's a kid. That's kind of the thought process. Everybody's a kid in a candy store like feeling. So every father, every grandpa, every, grandkid coming in are starting a new tradition, hopefully, and then that will be a legacy brand and memory forever. I really just want to bring history and nostalgia in, and obviously Flyboy kind of brings that in. And I have a huge respect for aviation and heroes of the past.
So you got a classic corner over here. We got the aviation piece. It's very personal for you, and I love that because you shine through the business, and your ideas shine through the business.
Right.
You got a team and a staff of 40 people.
Right.
Evan's over here.
Yeah.
Evan's got biceps of the size of my head.
Yeah.
Is that from lifting donuts, Evan, or are you just in the gym all the time? No. A little bit down over here.
Yeah.
It seems to me like you really focus on hiring good people.
I do.
Want to talk about one in particular. You hired the daughter of the former owner of Brenda's Pastry.
That's right.
U.S. shop.
Yeah. And she actually was just a teenager when I first got to meet her, and we had just started our 4th location, and she was working part-time, and then it kind of worked her way up the ranks. And I had actually met her when she was younger.
Yeah.
Because I talked to her father when we had just started the 1st location. She was just an adolescent, and turns out that she now works for me and is also my right-hand man and does a lot for me. Has worked for me for over 5 years. And the whole Brenda's Bakery is always a comparison to Flyboy. And I like that comparison because I compare a lot of things to my experiences of a bakery when I was growing up in Gettysburg. Is not my hometown, but they had a famous bakery that were known for their nut rolls. So this fried cinnamon roll, but with nuts on top, I have a lot of history in my head with that. And then we try to make it as good. We're always trying to be the donut shop you grew up with.
Yeah. I want to talk about the ingredients. A lot of people are focused on what's in the thing. When I'm going to a donut shop, I don't think about, is it healthy for me, right?
Right.
But is it going to be a good, tasty donut?
Right.
How much do you focus on the ingredients and how are you monitoring? Like, is it being consistent?
Yeah.
Oh, you're big on experience.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I mean, my background is first farming, and then that's where I got my entrepreneurial skills, I'd say, the majority. But then also working at a food plant and the food industry in large volume, I learned formulation and also ingredient science, as well as I'm always, I'm a cook at home. I like to experiment and I like to taste test, and I know it tastes good, and I know what to, how to put things together.
Yeah. One thing you said to me, and I gotta be honest with you guys, it's not my best trait yet. I'm trying to get better. And I said, Ben, what do you do to take feedback that's not necessarily good?
Yeah.
And he said, that's kind of how we built our business. I have to take the feedback and apply it. Otherwise, we're not going to have a business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a legacy brand, so we're going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And so we're not worried about today's revenue or today's cash. We're worried about.
Always had that mindset.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. It wasn't a day that you said, man, we made it.
Well, I think I'm a pleaser. Like you said, I'm a problem solver, but also a pleaser. So I'm trying to please. It's not the revenue. It's actually pleasing that individual, because that's what I'm proud of. So if I'm not doing that well, then I need to correct it, and we got to figure out how to do it better. So
I think the thing is, you mentioned it, right? This is a legacy company. It's not going away.
right.
And that really stuck out to me because there's brands, there's iconic brands.
Yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, even non-biased to myself, you guys are becoming, over the last 10 years, an iconic
Right.
Sioux Falls brand. People talk about it.
Yeah.
You got to get a Flyboy donut, right?
Right.
Kind of rolls up the tongue. You got to get a Flyboy. And
That's right.
you're pivoting too to ice cream. So
Yeah.
talk about, like, how do you measure when to do things like that?
Yeah. Well, I've had these dreams of the ice cream or other items, like for instance, breakfast sandwiches. From the beginning, I wanted to have breakfast sandwiches because my background prior to Flyboy with the company Grand Prairie Foods in Sioux Falls, I was a manager of millions of breakfast sandwiches.
Were you responsible for the Chuck Wagon?
No, that was I think Deli Express.
Deli Express.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much where I lived on in high school.
Okay.
I don't know, it wasn't very good for me. And
Yeah. Yeah.
damn, they were good.
Yeah, they were pretty good. And we produce mass amounts of food.
Yeah.
And good food, but more commodity food for school systems. Not so much the restaurant industry. So this I enjoy because it's a direct. I can see the customer. I can see where in that plant environment you cannot ever know that customer. You only know the broker in between, or the buyer, direct buyer that also then sells to their trickle down customer.
What I heard there was you're a lot closer to the community here, right? Trapped in a factory.
Correct.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
So this is a concept, right? When Ben took the last year driving up to Brookie once a week, and he said, that's how I test.
The last 7 years, actually.
7 years. Okay.
So we've been going up to Brookings in the last 7 years every Thursday. So it's a captive audience that knows us. The alumni always has our donuts for their Hobo Day Parade.
Yes.
1,200 donuts and 140 gallons of coffee.
Marched it many times.
Right. So that relationship with also the big industry up there, 3M and Dektronics, where my sister and brother-in-law work. The alumni, like I mentioned, we're on campus as well. And then Country Corner, which is a convenience store.
Yeah.
Used to be called Bozaed's.
Yeah.
And it used to be a place where my wife and I would get a hot dog and pop for nothing in college. It was like 5 cents a cup or something ridiculous, that because we didn't have any money. So we enjoyed that. So those memories are still alive in my head. I want to honestly go back to those memories. And that's why Brookings and SDSU, I'm so proud to be a collaborator with them.
Yeah.
And also I'm going to be a licensed vendor that is able to sell Jackrabbit and SDSU's apparel. I can also make SDSU and Jackrabbit donuts because I have that license now.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'd hate to be a coyote right now.
Now we love everybody in the Midwest. We love everybody, because as long as you're from South Dakota, we're friends. And I love that competitive spirit that we've always had with the Coyotes and others.
Yeah. And I think, well, I will touch on that. I think when you walk in here, it does feel like a little bit of a place for everybody. You got things to do for kids. You got this kind of corner. You're pulling threads from every part of your story.
Yeah.
Sharing it with everybody, saying,
Right.
love these things. I want you to love them too.
Yeah. Yeah, like that wagon over there. It says Ben on it. That was made by it was actually a birthday present when I was 5 that my brother painted up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an old wagon, maybe my dad's or an uncle on the farm. But yeah, that's special to me, obviously, and it kind of just ties in that donuts are popular because they're good tasting, they're portable, and they are made quickly.
It's like the pizza of breakfast.
Yeah, it is. It really is American, just like apple pie. I really, as American as apple pie and hot dog
Yeah.
and baseball,
Yeah.
I really believe donuts are that. And I just believe that. I've seen it really since day one as to the demand. I was so surprised how people just get a glazed over, no pun intended, glazed over look in their eyes that we're talking about donuts.
Favorite is the espresso top. What do you call that?
The Jonut,
The Jonah.
jet fuel Jonut.
And I literally get fuel whip out.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, there is coffee, a little bit of coffee and Oreo crunch on the top.
Yeah.
And then our homemade caramel sauce, and then whipped cream, and then our chocolate cake donut with chocolate frosting. And we came up with that really year 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I believe it's year 2 because we wanted to tell the story of our coffee roasting ability. We roast, 22,000 pounds a year.
It's insane.
The big roaster in the area, but it's kind of quiet compared to the donut that it kind of overshadows everybody else. But it's a good companion product, obviously. And we wanted to tell the story, so we roast our own coffee, and some of that coffee is on the top of this jet fuel donut. And
Yeah.
it's a kind of a play on a Cup of Joe, and then also Joe Foss, obviously the local hero. So that was a perfect.
Set it all over.
Right.
You're readying so much.
And we didn't ask AI about that one. That was way before AI. My sister and I came up with that. So we make all the frostings ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't really cheapen it by buying pre-made frostings because we know what tastes good.
Yeah.
And it's worth it because obviously that's a large flavor profile in your mouth, and the mouthfeel as well is also very important. We don't like that waxy items that you can buy pre-made, mainly just because of flavor profile.
Yeah. I'm surprised that I'm going to walk out of here, probably do a birthday or home or wherever we're going. It's like less than usually $30 an hour.
Right. And that's where, that's why it's a popular treat spot, because you can have more decadent or you can have more traditional, and usually the more traditional is less expensive.
Yeah.
So you can get, it's obviously cheaper by the dozen too. We try to give incentives for that, just mainly for packaging reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, we know the final customer is actually not this person.
Yeah.
But it's like the kid or maybe the person back at the workspace or all that. So a lot of internal customers that we worry about. So make sure that you package it right by the time it gets to the final customer.
Yeah.
It's not smushed. Yes, exactly. Yep.
All right, Ben. Well, thank you for letting me bust in on your conversation with Steve. There are a few questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
So I'm kind of a math and chemistry nerd. And so when you were talking about food science, I got a little excited. I'd love to learn more about the numbers. So how many locations do you have? And here you've got some trucks.
Yeah.
You got a
A
cool
lot of fun stuff.
van you just bought. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear about that.
Yeah, no, we're always, my mind's always stirring as to how we can expose our brand to more people.
Yeah.
And that's why we really have 5 locations now.
Okay.
Our first location was in 2014,
Yep.
right after I bought Flyboy Donuts from actually a previous owner. Created a brand called Flyboy because he's a jet pilot.
Got
And he actually bought a Daylight Donuts and tea and said, no, we're Flyboy, but really didn't change anything as far as formula.
it.
He just changed the name. And then he wanted to differentiate himself from a local owner who was also called Daylight Donuts, which is a licensee program. And basically that would have the formula and have the everything, but he'd never use the name. So he's kind of paying a premium for that I recognize when I saw it as a business for sale, that I could probably come up with my own formulations, better freight, also more options for Minneapolis. And that's when I just took off with it. And really I always had that goal of having at least 4 locations in Sioux Falls in order to kind of be the donut shop that people would think of. So that was always a kind of a defensive strategy that I've had, and it pays off, obviously. And now the fifth is in kind of the center of town here by the mall. And then we're looking at other locations as well.
So what's interesting is, on the outside, somebody that might see the Flyboy brand around town might assume, this wasn't homegrown, right? You come from food science, you had all this formulation background, you had the business background too, like analyzing market, things like that. So you've just pretty much done all of this yourself.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, myself, and of course a lot of good helpers. My sister Stacy's a huge help for the marketing aspects of it, and then I've got a lot of help from previous employees of mine at my previous jobs.
okay.
Have come with me. Got some really strong um, action people where in the processing and as well as the production end of it.
Yeah.
So we can actually fulfill the needs of these, 10,000 or more donuts per day.
10,000 donuts a day. You know what? I had mentioned this before, but you have saved my tail on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
So birthday,
Right.
forgot about the birthday thing.
Right.
I found your website, could order them for the next day.
Right.
Happy birthday donut.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
haven't even thought that, didn't realize that was a thing. My
Yeah.
mom told me about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And just like a couple of times where I had team building and I forgot. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to bring something.
Right.
And I swing in. It wasn't this location, it was over at the Bridges.
Yeah.
And got a whole bunch of donuts for the event. So you've actually saved my tail at
Yeah.
times.
Well, we try, that. Yeah. Well, I know that. And because I've been there too, when I was a plant manager, we would buy donuts
Yeah.
from Hy-Vee,
Sure.
and I would come there, I need 12 dozen donuts, and they would be mad.
Uh.
So I remember that too. So I want to solve that issue. That's like the value proposition of a brand is what are you solving for, or what service or what good are you making that they would appreciate and repeat. So that's always in my head as a consumer. So.
But what was interesting in that, what you don't often see from a small town owner or a small business owner was that honestly the technology was surprised me. So like I had a SMS text, it was like your order is ready,
Right.
things like that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
This is impressive.
Yeah, we use technology for a tool basically, so we can, have direct communication to the customers as well as I just need it for data, so I can react to and repeat good events and good practices, and opposite if we have security cameras that we're always watching what inventories we have of our donuts so we can share if needed with all the other locations.
Yep.
We act as if every location is room within one building, and that way the personnel, the management, the budgets, all that is one, and that way there's ownership. If your trench or your store is okay, you might look at your neighbor, and then there's redundancy there with care, and then that is kind of like self-healing, and also camaraderie within the group.
Yeah,
So.
I love that. And what's interesting, and I came in here for the first time. I hit a couple of other locations more regularly because they're closer to my house. But you've got sandwiches, you've got ice cream, you've got really good coffee.
Yeah.
So initially, did you start out with all those things, or how have you
No,
your store grown?
it's especially when you're producing, you want to worry about your core competency, what you're good at, and obviously that's donuts primarily. But then as you're comfortable, you can add other things to your portfolio, and we're trying to make people realize that donut shops are not just buying donuts and taking them home, but hopefully it can be experience, camaraderie, and nostalgia that you can sit down and talk to your friends, etc. We then know, coffee is a good companion. So if we can produce the best coffee,
Yeah.
and a story behind that, that'll draw in people for other reasons, for coffee breaks. So it's beyond the breakfast food that donuts are suggested, but breakfast sandwiches, homemade bread that I make. It's based on my mom's recipe that I grew up with. So
Tell me about that. So
Yeah.
what makes the bread that
yeah, so it's 20% of whole wheat bread that I grew up with. My mom would make bread once a week because she had 8 kids. So she had to do that, not have to, but that was just a common thing back then. And I wanted to continue that. So that's the same formula, the same recipe. Actually, some of the wheat, the whole wheat, is from my farm. So it's just fun to bring that. I'm homesick a little bit. So it's exactly the same flavor, especially when I toast it. It's just so much like what I grew up with. So
Well, that's interesting, the nostalgia that you have, for even, like, this table you mentioned was a little bit older, but, like, you build in all these incredible.
yeah, everything has a story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's I didn't know that. So, like, hearing some of this. So,
right.
did you talk about the table already?
Nope, the table is a very old, I think 100 years old, and I came across it on Facebook Marketplace. I'm a big fan of that, and so anyway, that woman actually still comes in here and eats a donut on her old table, and I believe it was her mom's table as well. So there's just so much good memories, and I just like real character. That's what I have, hopefully everywhere. That is a you know, cabinet that someone made bread. It's called a Hoosier. So it has all these components that you put flour and sugar and all those, and then basically that would be bread would be hand kneaded, and then it would be risen, and then it would go in the oven later. So
Yeah.
that's and then these planes actually that maybe you'll take a video of later. They were made. They're a kit. They also fly. So they have engines and then the remote control, but they never did fly. He just put them together. His father actually flew these planes in World War II.
Okay.
And that particular plane is actually a plane that the Commemorative Air Force in Sioux Falls, that's their official plane. It's called a Stinson, and that, or an L5. And I'm helping fundraise money for that because we do some collaborations and cooperations with Commemorative Air Force. And there's a video, or there's a picture back there of a model airplane club in the 40s in Sioux Falls. And that we picked up from Ruby Tuesday when they did a renovation. They sold that for $50, and
Yeah.
we picked it up.
Sure.
Okay.
You wonder with all the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, ship. So I've got an idea for you, and this might be a little wild.
Yeah.
What about a drone and a donut drop?
Yeah. I'm on that. I'm all over that. I've got, it might happen.
Oh, well, that'd be so.
Yeah. So in Omaha, they have a service that does that with other food. Yes. Yeah, and it's coming. We know it. I have drones, but actually that mechanism is not that far away. And I am reached out to that company that is in Omaha, and Omaha is not that far from Sioux Falls. So we could be a beta program that you could airdrop donuts to a business location downtown as a common space.
Yeah.
Because they have all these different safety measures in place. So they have common drop areas, and then a box would drop that is secured that then they could pick up their donut. Yeah, it's going to happen.
What's so great is you have a really great blend of nostalgia
Yeah.
and stories and, flight simulators and technology. And you come in here, it feels like 1940. It feels clean. You've got the roots here in South Dakota.
Yeah.
You understand what homemade bread should taste
Right.
like.
Yeah.
And yet there's great ideas for donut drops.
Yes. No, it's fun for me. I mean, I need to keep on striving to kind of have more fun.
Yeah.
I get bored very easily, so I want to be challenged. And I'm also cognizant of, we got to make sure we execute on our current ideas, just so those don't drop. Because we don't want to ever be too big, so we change our core way.
Sure.
Yeah, so that will always be strong when I'm still here. So
I've got one question, then I do want to ask you, like, your big vision. So what's the wildest idea for a donut that you've ever tried?
oh well,
Or maybe that you want to try?
well that I try. I remember when I first started, I wanted to make the biggest donut possible. Because I thought that could be a fun. So we made a twist that was as big as my arm.
Okay.
But that's so hard. The too big, obviously, it's harder to cook the inside long enough where the outside would get too cooked. So there's a certain limit in size. We do a Texas donut, so it's like a 10-inch donut. And that turns out to be about the maximum for that same reason, where the dough, unless you cook it at a very low, and maybe you could bake it at a very low, so you're not burning the outside before the internal You know, a donut is a ring because it cooks so evenly. There's more surface area. Yeah.
Wow.
That's why a donut is popular, because it could be cooked fast for actually the army. So is where it became more popular in World War I.
Oh.
Salvation Army. And that's why National Day is a day, because it stems back from the Salvation Army in World War I, where they wanted to give a homemade treat to the guys in the trenches.
Yeah.
So they could, quickly cook hundreds and hundreds for the soldiers.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So the donuts have the ring because it's faster to cook.
Yes, more surface area.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Okay, I learned something today. I've learned a lot of things today. But so what is your vision as you think about this amazing kind of just enterprise that you've built, that you've got 5 locations, you got some cool things in the hopper. What's your big vision for Flyboy as you think about the next, 5-10 years?
Well, we know that Sioux Falls will have there'll be a saturation point where maybe 2 more, and then we're saturated. And then every sector, even though it's a growing community, maybe has that fulfilled. So then we'll look at other communities, and we already are. You know, Brookings is going to be our 6th location starting in August. And then after that, it might be other communities within a 100-mile radius of Sioux Falls. And I say that because I know the key is to provide fresh donuts, and also cooked dough is that whole science, and that ability is a skill. It's very hard to train, and I cannot do that remotely from Sioux Falls, and I cannot be present if, for instance, Mitchell or Yankton or other ones in Brookings or North Sioux City, Vermilion. All these places are definite candidates for Flyboy.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to learn more about you.
Yeah.
It's an amazing legacy that you've built here at Flyboy, and look forward to what happens in the future. And if you get a donut drop,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't technically come up with it, so
Yeah.
for a percentage.
Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah.
There's record that I thought of this.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
Great to meet you, Ben. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
We're gonna have to come back and do another episode, or at least
Sure bet.
because we didn't even cover the other things, like how do you get things 2 places on time.
Yeah, the logistics is important.
This is good. I'm gonna go eat these with Melissa.
Very
at
good.
TV right now. So Ben,
Very good.
thanks, brother.
Yeah.
It's
nice,
been real.
Nice
Thanks for
meeting
stopping
you.
by. Spotlight Sioux Falls is honored to be here. Very inspiring for us. And as we create our brand, we are going to be inspired by Ben's story at Flyboy Donuts. Thanks, Ben. Peace.
This episode of Spotlight Sioux Falls is sponsored by Magnetic. We help businesses grow through content that stands out and software that scales your conversations. Not sure how to build your pipeline? You can find us at magnetic.services. Magnetic.services, your pipeline will thank you.
Thanks for listening to Spotlight Sioux Falls.
These are the stories and the businesses that shape our city. If you heard something today that made you smile, made you think, or maybe reminded you of someone you know in your neighborhood, please share it.
That's how we support local. That's how we grow. And if you know a business owner we should feature, or you want to tell your story, reach out.
Until next time, we're Steve and Melissa, and this is Spotlight Sioux Falls, where local stories get the stage they deserve.